There are not that many watches out there that have gained as much attention, as much hype, and as much positivity as the BlackBay 58. And now that I've owned this watch myself for 12 months, I want to try and answer the question, does it actually live up to that hype? Does it actually live up to all that positivity? Should you consider buying one for yourself? Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches, and I'm going to answer the question right now. Yes. Well, thanks for watching. No, I'm going to go into this a little bit more detail, but I'm not going to do a full review of this watch because there are just so many reviews of this watch online. Instead, what I want to try and do is just show you this watch in as much detail as I can and point out the reasons why I think this watch is so good. In fact, I think it actually goes past the hype. I think it's better than what people are saying. I truly love this watch. But that is not to say that it is the right watch for you. I know other people that have owned this watch and they absolutely adore it as much as I do. And I know other people that have owned this watch that really like it, but have ended up selling it. So even though I've really connected with this watch, it doesn't automatically translate to you really connecting with this watch. But what I can say is that it is a really, really nice watch that is worth considering. And the good thing about Tudor is there are actually available to get out there and see. If you live in a relatively major city or near a major city, or you're traveling to a major city, there's likely to be a Tudor boutique or a Watches of Switzerland or another boutique that holds Tudor watches. And this is one that's worth going out and handling it, because when I was watching videos about this watch, I thought, that's a great looking watch, but no, I think I'm good. Until I then had hands-on experience with it, I then realized that, yes, okay, I do like this watch. I actually want to own one for myself. And it's also a relatively good time to consider buying one because the hype has died down somewhat. The prices have come down. On the secondary market, they are becoming much more affordable because brand new, they're around about 6,000 Australian dollars. But I bought mine a year ago for $3,500. And they are regularly available for around that price now. And yes, that's still not a cheap watch. But for what you're getting, for the quality of it, for how good it is, when you compare it against other watches in the range, I struggle to find anything that is actually better. So I really do understand this hype behind this watch. I certainly don't understand the hype about buying it above market price, but if you get it for the right price, which I felt like I bought this myself, I can definitely think it is worthwhile considering. So let me talk about this watch while I show you it in as many different environments and different angles and close up and far away as I can. Because this watch partly is a lovely watch because of its size. It is a 39mm case and it is exactly 39mm, which I think for a lot of us is a really nice size, and certainly me with a 17cm wrist does fit nicely. Has a nice weight to it as well. This one's 133 grams sized to that 17cm wrist, and it has a lovely balance to it. There are certain watches which balance well on wrist, that the head of the watch, the clasp, the bracelet, all just sits well, and this one is definitely one of those which really elevates the feel of it. But it really then comes down to the quality and the tolerances and the case and the finishing that really then elevates this one above most of the other watches that I've ever owned. When you hold this one in your hand, just like this, when you feel the bracelet, when you feel the case, it is something special. And it is different to other watches. I hold other watches and I just know that this is my Tudor BlackBay because of how it feels. Those tolerances, those details in the bracelet. The bracelet itself, I know, is a little bit divisive. Some people hate it. I absolutely love it. I think it is gorgeous. In fact, it's one of my favorite features of this watch. So for me, that is a positive. But then there's things like the bezel action. Now let me put this up to my microphone. Not only does it have a great sound, but the feel is better than any bezel action I've ever experienced before. I love the bezel action on this watch. I have other watches that have great bezel actions and I enjoy playing with them and turning them, not even for any real reason other than just to sort of enjoy the experience of it. But this one is the best, even compared to other watches that are much more expensive that I've experienced as well. The blue of this watch just works for me. When I first saw this watch come out and it was in the black and gilt, I thought, what a great looking watch, but I'm not really a big fan of yellow gold, so the gilt put me off. So when the blue came out, I got all excited, but looking at the photos, I was a little bit disappointed. I thought, oh, that's a bit dull. Why don't they just come out with a black and silver version is what I asked myself. But I then saw this one in person, and the blue is so much better than any picture or any video has ever shown to me. I don't think that even the video I'm showing you is actually going to show this properly. It is one that is really worth seeing in person. I also love the crown on this one. It looks great, has that really cool sort of rose on the side, but the action, the crown tube size and the action of this movement is just next level. And I think all the dimensions of this watch are just right. They all work together really well. The case size, the bezel size, the crown size, really all works together. Nothing stands out as out of proportion. And until I actually got this watch in hand, I didn't realize the polishing could be so good. Now, I've experienced Grand Seiko, the Zaratsu polishing, and it's beautiful as well. I love it. And I think this Tudor is getting close to that. I'm not going to say it's Grand Seiko level because I think that is blasphemy when it comes to watches, but it's so much better than every other watch that's in my collection. The polishing is done at an extremely high level, and I think that says something about this watch. The tolerances, the details, the finish of this watch, everything is at a high level. That's why when you hold this watch, you feel it. And I've held Rolex watches before, lots of Rolex watches before, and I think the baby brother, or at least what some people consider the baby brother from Tudor, is a better watch. I prefer this watch. I prefer the look of it, I prefer the size of it, I prefer the feel of it, and I love having this one in my collection. Some people are talking about this watch and thinking, well, I could get a Tudor instead of that Rolex because it's available and it's a more affordable. But for me personally, I think it's a better watch. Now, I know there's people out there that are going to be watching this, and I know one particular person who's not going to agree with me, and that's perfectly fine because I am putting my own personality, my own thoughts in behind this particular video. As I mentioned earlier, not everybody connects with this watch like I have, but I definitely have. So am I going to say that it meets the hype? Yes. Am I going to say that it exceeds the hype? Yes. Am I going to say that it's a perfect watch? Well, no. There's nothing about this that I personally dislike, but I know other people dislike parts about this watch. Like the size. Some people think it's a little bit too small, or some people think it's a little bit too big. A lot of people don't like the bracelet, and that's perfectly fine. But there's another standout feature about this watch that I absolutely love, and that is the clasp. That elevates this watch too. I love the action of it. Everything about this watch seems to resonate with me, and it just does make me feel a little bit special. And that probably is something that's not quite right. A watch shouldn't make me feel special, but this one makes me feel a little bit special, and I feel that I paid a reasonable price for it. And the last thing I want to talk about is that price point. Yes, it's around about $6,000 new, but regularly available around about $3,500 secondhand. And when I consider that price point, I think about, well, what is around it, what's below it, what's above it, how does it fit into the circumstances? And when I think about watches that are a bit below it and a bit above it, there's two watches that stand out to me. They are different styles of watches, but I'm talking about price points and quality. The step below it maybe is like an Oris, and the step above it is maybe like an Omega. And this watch, this Tudor, is much closer in quality to the Omega than it is to the Oris. I love Oris as well, and I'm not putting Oris down because I do really enjoy the brand, but I think this watch is much closer to Omega. In fact, the Omegas that I've handled that I do like, I feel that it equals that. It's a watch that is less money than an Omega, but it equals an Omega. So I think it actually really sort of exaggerates why this watch is so good and priced so well. I think Tudor has done very well this way. I think they could quite easily increase their prices, but they haven't, and that has worked in very well for us as watch enthusiasts. Thanks for watching, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this watch. I'm assuming some of you may even own this watch or are thinking about this watch or really want this watch, or perhaps have seen this watch and it is not for you. I'd like to hear your comments about this one. Thanks for watching. Maybe check these videos out next.